A fire of elation burns within me when I recall in my heart what happened. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But I shall arouse lamentation, so thou remember what occurred. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Then Moshe chose to sing a song not to be forgotten. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But Jeremiah lamented a doleful lament. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. My house was established and the cloud rested upon it. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But God's fury rested like a heavy cloud upon me. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. The waves of the sea piled high and stood up like a wall. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But the wanton enemy drowned me and poured over my head. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Heavenly grain and a rock from which flowed water. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. Wormwood and bitterness and the bitter waters. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. From the dawn to dusk encircling Mount Horeb. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But a call to mourning by the rivers of Babylon. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. And the appearance of the glory of Adonai was like a fire consuming before me. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But abandoned to the slaughter of the sharpened sword. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Sacrifices and flour offerings and the oil of anointment. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But God's treasure was taken like sheep to the slaughter. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Festivals and Shabbats and miracles and signs. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But fasting and mourning and the pursuit of futility. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Goodly tents encamped under 4 flags. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But tents of the Ishmaelites and the camps of the uncircumcised. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Jubilee and sabbatical year, and the land was tranquil. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But I was sold for posterity, torn apart and cut to pieces. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. The ark and its cover, and the stones of remembrance on the high priest's shoulder. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But stones from the catapult and weapons that devour. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Levim and the sons of Aaron and the 70 elders. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But tyrants and tormentors, slave traders and buyers. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Moshe provided for us and Aaron guided us. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But Nebuchadnezzar and Hadrian the emperor. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. We arrayed for battle and Adonai was with us there when Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But he was distant from us, and indeed he seemed not to be present. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. The ark concealed behind the curtain, and the table's panim bread arrangement. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But fury poured out upon me and hovered over me. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Burnt offerings and sacrifices and pleasing fire offerings. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But stabbed with the sword were precious children of Zion. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Glorious turbans designated for the priest's honor. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But whistle calls and trumpet blasts, fearsome city cries and shuddering, when I went forth from Yerushalayim. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. The high priest's golden headplate, monarchy and sovereignty, when I went forth from Egypt. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But the tiara was thrown down, and the divine help had vanished. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Sanctity and prophecy and the glory of Adonai was manifest. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But abomination and filth and impure spirit. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. Joyous song and salvation and the triumphant trumpet blast. Beitzeti mi Mitzrayim. But the infants wailing and the mortally wounded are groaning. Beitzeti mi Yerushalayim. the tabernacle's table and menorah, burnt offering and incense, B'Tzeiti mi Mitzrayim, but idol and abomination, graven image and pagan stele, B'Tzeiti mi Yerushalayim, Torah and testimony and cherished vessels, B'Tzeiti mi Mitzrayim, gladness and joy, while anguish and sighing will flee, B'Tzeiti mi Yerushalayim. And I went forth from Egypt, B'Tzeiti mi Mitzrayim, when I return to Yerushalayim, Besuvi l'Yerushalayim. And what is the significance of the metaphor which describes God as roaring over every watch like a lion? Jeremiah writes, Hashem will roar. How does the roar of a lion relate to the destruction of the Holy Temple? For whom the lion roars? It is written in Proverbs, I passed by the field of a lazy man and by the vineyard of a man lacking an enthusiastic heart. Behold, it was all overgrown with thorns. Its surface was covered with thistles, and its stone fence crumpled into ruin. As recorded in Sanhedrin 103a. I passed by the field of a lazy man. This is a reference to King Ahaz, who had closed the Torah academies and stopped the temple service, as quoted by Rashi, and the vineyard of a man lacking an enthusiastic heart. This describes King Manasseh, who went further and ripped God's name from the Torah and destroyed the temple altar. And behold, it was all overgrown with thorns. This refers to King Amon, who continued the depravity, and its surface was covered with thistles. This refers to King Jehoiakim, and its stone fence crumbled into ruin. This refers to King Zedekiah, in whose time the first temple was ultimately destroyed. No vision is as penetrating as that of our prophets and sages who, with divine inspiration and insight, would study Jewish history from the Torah perspective and revealed the true cause and meaning of everything that would befall God's nation. 3 Talmudic passages will address the crucial question, what brought about the destruction of the first temple and the exile of the Jewish nation? Let us analyze and compare them. The first passage is from Yoma 9b. Why was the first temple destroyed? Because during its period there were 3 great sins: idolatry, immorality, and bloodshed. This passage speaks for itself. A nation that tramples upon the cardinal sin of the Torah forfeits its right to God's protection. From Nedarim 81a. The question of why the first temple was destroyed was asked of the sages and the prophets and the ministering angels, and they could not explain it until the Holy One, Baruch Hu, explained, because they did not make blessings before studying the Torah. Now this one must be considered carefully, the implication of what it means. The people Israel did study and practice the Torah, so it's difficult for us to comprehend why they should be punished. Therefore, only God himself can explain it. And he had delved into the depths of their hearts and saw that the basis of their downfall was that even though they were studying Torah, it was not important to them, and they studied it with the wrong motive. The clear proof of this was their failure to recite the proper blessings for the Torah before they began their daily studies. This was why the sages, prophets, and angels, why were the sages, prophets, and angels so bewildered by the first destruction? Did they not know that people were guilty at the time of idolatry, immorality, and bloodshed? They did, but they were confused by the contradictory behavior. On the one hand, these people studied Torah, but on the other hand, they seemed depraved enough to violate all 3 of these cardinal sins. How could people behave in such contradictory manners? Only God himself could give the right answer. Appearances are often deceiving. People can be shallow and insincere. Their study of Torah may not have penetrated into their character. They do not realize it is a blessing. They recite no blessing over it. Therefore, their studies fail to elevate, sanctify, and discipline them. They succumbed easily to the temptation of the 3 cardinal sins. Our third passage is as the one quoted above. This one from Sanhedrin 103a. I passed by the field of a lazy man. This refers to Achav, who closed the Torah academies and stopped the temple service, and its stone fence crumbled into ruin, a reference to King Tzedekah, in whose time the first temple was destroyed. Zedekiah, in whose time the first temple was destroyed. And in this, the sages of the Talmud delve even deeper. They ask themselves, how could it be that Israel failed to appreciate and bless God for giving them Torah? How could the powerful message of the Torah fail to penetrate deep into their hearts? Why did their Torah study fail to improve the character of the nation during the First Temple period? To explain why the Torah sometimes fails to make an impression on its students, the sages would formulate what might be called an axiom of Torah physics. The power of Torah to impact on its student is equal to the amount of energy and enthusiasm which the student will invest in his studies. Studied with a passive indifference, Torah will remain lifeless. It's facts and figures, laws and lessons. For the lackadaisical student, the Torah will remain limp, lifeless, and mute. When he pores over and ponders it with wonder, awe, and love, it comes alive. As the inspired student pours his life into the Torah, he breathes life into the words and letters, and they dance and sing before his eyes. As he opens his heart to the Torah reveals her secrets. When motivated student does that, it becomes the most powerful life force in the universe. Nothing stands in its path. All of nature bows before Torah. Torah, the life force of the universe. We can begin to appreciate the power of Torah by comparing it with the power of the sun itself. The sun is the life force. Although it is 93 million miles away, its prodigious nuclear heat and light travel that distance in only moments and blanket the earth with the warmth and energy that makes all life and all living things possible. Its light and energy travel out to the most remote corners of the solar system. Moreover, it's the sun's gravitational pull that locks all of the planets and moons and satellites of the solar system into an obedient, undeviating orbit. Any infinitesimal change in the sun's temperature or position would have an enormous effect on every part of the solar system and could spell life or death for all organisms and heavenly bodies many millions of miles away. And just as the sun is the life force of our tiny solar system, the Torah is the life force of the entire universe. Indeed, it is through Torah that God invested the sun with its gift of light, heat, and gravity. God gave the Torah this mastery and dominion over the entire cosmos only for the sake of Israel. He desired that there be a spiritual light, heat, energy, and power in the world so that Israel could harness it and elevate the mundane earth to the highest levels of heavens. This concept introduces us to the great difference between all life forces of nature and the life force of Torah. At creation, the Almighty decreed that all life forces should perform their tasks constantly and without deviation. No one has to press a button or flip a switch to turn the sun on and off. It functions continuously because such was God's will. Not so the Torah. The Torah has a button, and God appointed Israel as the custodians. When all Jews study the Torah with all of their hearts and all of their minds, they press that button so hard that the Torah springs to life with an awesome force, radiating energy, abundance, and blessing throughout the entire universe. But when Israel's enthusiasm wanes and dwindles, and only some study Torah, sometimes with some fraction of their mental capacity, then the Torah gives forth only a fraction of its light and blessing. And a chilly darkness blankets the universe. A dark age of desolation and decay sets in. All progress and growth begin to slow. the world regresses into confusion, conflict, and chaos. And those who suffer the most will be the Jews, for they are the guardians of the Torah. And when they press the Torah buttons vigorously, they are the first to feel the blessings. But when they fail to press the button, they will be the first to suffer the effects of that failure. If, heaven forfend, there would even be for one moment when no one anywhere was studying Torah, then we would assume all the world would cease to exist. Thus, even one lonely Jew has abundant power, for he has the ability to sustain all worlds and all of creation through study of the Holy Torah for his own sake, lishma. Moreover, it was worthwhile for the entire world to have been created for his sake alone. Regarding such matters, the sages stated in Mishnah Sanhedrin 4:5, a person is obligated to say, it was because of me the world was created. Nefesh Chachaim